The most attractive alien warrior woman in the universe came to my house for an unbelievable reason. Jack Carter lived alone at the edge of a quiet human city, in a small house that looked no different from the others around it. The paint was old, the fence leaned a little, and the lights sometimes flickered at night. Jack liked it that way. He liked things simple, quiet, and easy to fix. He worked as a systems technician, repairing old machines that most people no longer cared about. He was good at his job, but he never talked about it. He never talked much at all. Most people in the city barely noticed him. Neighbors waved sometimes, but they did not stop to talk. Jack did not mind. After long days of noise and screens at work, silence felt safe. Every evening, he cooked simple food, listened to calm music, and read old paper books instead of glowing displays. It helped him sleep. What no one around him knew was that Jack had once stood in the middle of chaos that could have destroyed entire worlds. Years ago, during the first major conflict between humans and alien powers, Jack had been part of a small support team. He was not a soldier. He carried no weapon. His task had been to monitor systems and suggest solutions when things went wrong. When fleets clashed and leaders shouted orders, Jack had noticed something others missed. A pattern, a chain of mistakes that would lead to a disaster far worse than a single battle. Instead of following orders, he spoke up, calmly, clearly. His suggestion stopped a reaction that would have pulled several star systems into total war. After that day, the conflict slowly ended. Treaties were signed. Humans were allowed into galactic space, but only as minor players. Strong alien empires still ruled. Humans were seen as weak, soft, and too emotional. Jack never corrected anyone. He asked for no reward. He returned to Earth and disappeared into normal life. Years passed. The galaxy changed. New species rose. Old enemies slept. Humans stayed quiet. On this evening, Jack was standing in his living room, holding a small tool, trying to fix a light that had stopped working again. Outside, the sun had just set. The sky was dark blue, calm, and empty, or at least it looked empty. A strange feeling passed through the air, like pressure before a storm. The lights flickered harder than usual. Jack frowned and turned toward the window. The air outside shimmered, bending like heat above a road. A shape formed slowly, tall and solid. Jack's heart began to beat faster. This was not normal. He put the tool down and walked toward the door. He did not panic. He never did. Fear only made things worse. When the light faded, a figure stood in front of his house. She was taller than any human woman Jack had ever seen. Her armor reflected the dim street lights, smooth and dark, marked with symbols that looked ancient and sharp. Her skin had a faint metallic shine and her eyes glowed softly, like distant stars. Long dark hair fell down her back, tied in a warrior's style. She stood still, silent, watching the house. Jack knew immediately what she was, an alien warrior, not just any kind. He recognized the design of the armor from old reports and forbidden channels. She belonged to one of the strongest warrior cultures in the known universe. Stories about her kind filled entire data archives. Unbeatable fighters, strict honor, unmatched beauty, and now one of them stood at his front door. Jack swallowed and opened the door before his mind could talk him out of it. The warrior woman looked down at him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Jack noticed something strange. Her posture was not aggressive. Her hands were relaxed. Her weapon, a long blade attached to her back, remained untouched. Finally, she spoke in clear, calm English. "Jack Carter," she said, "I have come a long distance to see you." His name sounded heavy in her voice, as if it carried meaning beyond a simple sound. Jack stared at her, trying to understand. "I think you have the wrong house," he said quietly. Her lips curved slightly, not in a smile but in something close to relief. "I do not make such mistakes," she replied. "May I enter?" Every part of Jack's mind told him this was dangerous. But another part, the same part that had spoken up during the war, told him to stay calm. He stepped aside. "You can come in." She lowered her head slightly and entered his house. The ceiling was barely high enough for her. She looked around, taking in the simple furniture, the old books, the tools on the table. Nothing about the place suggested importance or power. Then slowly, she removed her weapon and placed it carefully on the floor near the door. Jack froze. Among her people, that act meant deep trust or deep respect. "Why are you doing that?" Jack asked. "Because this is not a battlefield," she said, "and you are not my enemy." She straightened and placed a hand over her chest. "My name is Lyra Voss. I am a warrior of my people and a commander of many battles." Jack nodded slowly. "I'm Jack." Lyra looked at him closely. "You are aware of who I am," she said. "I know what your people are known for," Jack replied. "I don't know why one of you would come here." "That is because humans were taught to forget their own importance," Lyra said. Jack felt a small chill. "What do you want?" Lyra did not answer right away. She walked to the center of the room and stood still, as if listening to something far away. Then she spoke, her voice lower. "The universe is changing again. A threat is rising that cannot be met with strength alone. My people have fought many wars and we have won them all, but this enemy does not fear death. It does not care for honor. Our victories mean nothing against it." Jack crossed his arms. "So you came to Earth?" "I came to you," Lyra said. Jack shook his head. "You don't need me. I'm not a leader. I'm not a soldier." Lyra's eyes softened. "That is exactly why we need you." She stepped closer and knelt slightly, bringing herself closer to his eye level. Jack's breath caught. The most feared warrior woman in the universe was lowering herself in his small living room. "Long ago," she said, "you spoke when others stayed silent. You saw what trained commanders did not. You saved lives across many worlds." Jack looked away. "I just did my job." "No," Lyra said gently. "You did what my people struggle to understand. You chose restraint. You chose reason. You chose life over victory." Jack felt memories rise, alarms, shouting, screens filled with warnings, his own calm voice cutting through it all. He had never thought of it as heroic. "Why now?" he asked. "Because the Council ignored humans for too long," Lyra replied, "and now time is running out." Outside, the night remained quiet. No ships filled the sky. No armies marched. Only a warrior and a human standing in a small house. Jack exhaled slowly. "I don't want trouble," he said. "I left that life behind." Lyra nodded. "I know. That is why I came here alone." She stood again. "I am not here to force you. I am here to ask." "Ask what?" "Ask you to remember who you are, Jack Carter, and to decide whether the universe is worth stepping into the light one more time." Jack said nothing. The light above them flickered again, then steadied. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. For the first time in many years, the quiet life Jack had built felt fragile. And for the first time, the universe was knocking on his door. Jack could hardly sleep that night. Lyra Voss stayed in the small living room, sitting on the floor as if it were a meeting hall on her home planet. She did not ask for comfort. She did not complain. She simply waited. Jack tried to focus on the simple sounds of his house, the old refrigerator humming, the wind brushing the trees outside, the faint ticking of a clock. But he could not stop thinking about her, about why she had come and what she expected from him. Morning came slowly. The sun painted the room in orange light. Lyra stood by the window, looking out at the quiet street. Jack poured coffee into 2 cups and brought one to her. She accepted it without speaking, her hands delicate despite the armor she wore, the same armor that could take years to forge and survive entire battles. "Why are you here?" Jack asked finally, breaking the silence. "I know you said it has something to do with a threat, but why me? There are leaders and warriors 1,000 times stronger than me." Lyra looked at him. "Strength does not always win wars, Jack. It never did. Your people survived for centuries because you adapt, because you think, because you value others instead of glory." Jack shook his head. "Humans are weak. You don't see it, but compared to your kind, we are soft. We can't fight like you. We can't destroy fleets or conquer planets." Lyra smiled faintly, a strange expression for someone who had won countless battles. Softness is not weakness. Fear is not failure. The galaxy forgets this. My people forget this. We rely on weapons and strength, and sometimes that is not enough. Sometimes the universe needs a human mind. Jack sat down heavily. The thought was overwhelming. An alien warrior, the most respected in the universe, asking for advice. It was not a dream. She was here, alive, real and serious. I'm not a hero, he said quietly. I helped once. Yes, but that was by accident, a lucky choice, nothing more. Lyra shook her head. It was not luck. You saw what others could not. You understood the outcome. You made a choice. Your choice saved countless lives. Humans do not see themselves the way the universe remembers them. Jack rubbed his face. He remembered alarms, the frantic orders, the chaos. He remembered the fear in the eyes of young soldiers, both human and alien, that had depended on his calm thinking. He remembered standing alone, trying to hold the threads of a disaster that no one else noticed. "And you want me to do it again?" he asked. "For your people?" Lyra shook her head slowly. "Not just for my people, for all who cannot fight this enemy with strength alone, for those who have no fleet to lead, no armies to command. You can stop what no weapon can." Jack was silent. The words felt enormous. The weight of a galaxy seemed to press into his small house. Outside, the wind rattled a shutter, reminding him that his quiet world had changed forever. "I do not want to lead a war," he said. "I do not want attention. I do not want anything." Lyra's voice was firm but soft. "You are not leading a war. You are being asked to think, to plan, to guide. That is what humans do best. We fight because we are trained to. We conquer because we must. Humans survive because you imagine, because you hope, because you understand people." She moved closer. "And sometimes that is the only way to win." Jack looked at her closely. He had seen warriors before, but never one like her. Her presence was calm, almost gentle, yet it carried authority. She was dangerous, yes, but not cruel. She was capable of violence, but she did not use it without reason. "Why me?" he asked again. "There are millions of humans. Why pick the one no one notices?" "Because you notice," Lyra said. "You see patterns, you understand outcomes. Your life is small in appearance, but your mind is not small." Jack laughed softly, a nervous sound. "I'm just a man fixing lights and old machines. I'm not a commander of fleets." "Yet the universe remembers you as one who commanded without a fleet," she said. "And now it needs you again, quietly, without armies, without fame, just your mind and your choices." Jack leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. He imagined the enemy she had mentioned. A force without fear, without rules, without weakness. His heart beat faster. He had seen the galaxy at war before, but never like this. This enemy could destroy worlds not because it was strong, but because it did not play by any rules. Lyra sat beside him. She removed her gloves, revealing hands that looked soft for someone who could crush metal. She held one cup of coffee and looked at him as if reading his thoughts. "You are afraid," she said quietly. "Good, you should be. It means you understand what is at stake. But fear does not make you weak. It makes you careful, aware, human." Jack exhaled slowly. He had never been praised for being human before. Soldiers and leaders had always treated emotion as a distraction, a risk, a weakness. But Lyra, she seemed to value it. "What exactly do you want me to do?" he asked. "Observe," she said. "Analyze, suggest. Help us see what we cannot see. Humans can see what logic alone misses. You will help save millions without firing a single shot." Jack thought about it. The last time he had done something like this, he had been afraid, yes, but he had also been proud in a quiet way. The satisfaction of stopping disaster, of saving lives, had stayed with him, even if no one else remembered. "And what if I refuse?" he asked cautiously. Lyra's eyes softened. "Then the universe will continue and many will die. The choice is yours, always yours. No one will force you, but remember, you were noticed once. You are noticed again." The weight of her words pressed on him. Outside, the wind blew stronger. For the first time, Jack felt the smallness of his world and the enormous scale of the universe. He thought of all the quiet people, the ordinary humans who went about their lives without knowing what forces moved in space. I need time, he said finally. I have to think. Lyra nodded. Take the time you need, but know this, the enemy does not wait. They move now, and we are already behind. Your window is short, Jack. They spent the rest of the morning in silence. Lyra observed quietly, occasionally asking questions about humans, about Earth, about simple things he had long forgotten. She was curious, not judgmental. She wanted to understand why humans survived when no one expected them to. Jack showed her his small collection of books. He told her about the quiet habits he enjoyed. Lyra listened, fascinated, asking questions about music, cooking, and stories from human history. She was amazed at the simple creativity, the way humans solved problems without brute force. Your people are underestimated, she said at one point, and that is why you survive. Jack shrugged. Maybe we are lucky. Lyra smiled. No, you do not survive by luck. You survive by noticing, by thinking, by caring. The day passed slowly. Jack cooked simple food for them both. Lyra ate sparingly, but she seemed to enjoy the experience. She asked about flavors and textures, about earth plants, about small choices humans made every day that aliens never considered important. In the evening, Jack sat by the window. He watched the sky. Stars shone faintly, distant and quiet. Lyra stood beside him. The enemy will come soon, she said. You may see them before any human realizes what is happening. Jack nodded, fear mixed with determination. He did not feel ready. He never felt ready. But he also knew he could not ignore her. The quiet human who once saved worlds was needed again. I will try, he said, but no promises. I do not want to be in the middle of battles again. You will not fight, Lyra said. You will guide, you will think. You will show what humans can do without weapons. That is why I came. Jack turned to her. The glow in her eyes reflected the stars outside. He realized, finally, that the most attractive and feared alien warrior in the universe had come not for strength, not for weapons, but for him. And in that moment, Jack understood that his quiet life, his simple house, and his small decisions could now change the fate of the galaxy. The night deepened. The air outside seemed still, yet charged. Jack and Lyra sat together, thinking, planning, waiting. The universe was large, dangerous, and unpredictable. But for the first time in years, a human mind was at the center of its attention. He felt the weight of it, but he also felt something else, the quiet courage of knowing he could make a difference. And that was why the alien warrior had come. Not to demand, not to conquer, not to fight, but to seek the mind of a human who could see what no one else could. They would both learn that thinking, caring, and patience could be more powerful than the mightiest weapon. And Jack knew that in the days to come he would be tested, not in battles of fire and steel, but in battles of logic, choice, and trust. This was only the beginning. Jack woke early the next day. The house was quiet, but he could feel a strange tension in the air. Lyra was already awake, sitting at the table, studying a small holomap she had brought with her. It was not very large, but it showed hundreds of star systems, some marked in red, some in green, some in blue. She had been silent for hours, and Jack had been hesitant to interrupt. He poured himself coffee and sat across from her. She looked up briefly, her eyes sharp and thoughtful. We have little time, she said. The enemy moves faster than anyone realizes. Entire systems may fall before humans even notice they are in danger. Jack nodded slowly. He did not yet fully understand what she meant, but he knew she was serious. Humans had always been slow to react on a galactic scale, and he was about to be thrown into the middle of it. How do you fight something that ignores all rules? He asked. Lyra leaned back. You do not fight it the way you fight a normal enemy. You do not charge. You do not plan battles in the usual sense. Humans have a skill my people rarely understand. You see patterns, not just forces. You see motives, weaknesses, connections. Sometimes the mind is stronger than a blade. Jack sipped his coffee. The last time he had relied on thought rather than force, it had saved lives. He wondered if that could work again on a scale much larger than a single system. I need to understand why humans survive, Lyra said quietly. Your species is underestimated, dismissed, and often ignored. Yet somehow you endure. Jack shrugged. Maybe we survive by accident. Maybe because no one takes us seriously. No, Lyra said firmly. You survive because you adapt, you observe, you change when necessary. You take risks others avoid because they are cautious. You show compassion even when it is inconvenient. And most of all, you think beyond the battlefield. That is why I came to you. Jack looked away. He was not used to being praised. Humans often worked quietly and were rarely recognized for it. Soldiers, politicians, and leaders received attention, not the quiet thinkers who prevented disasters. Yet here was a warrior, one of the most feared in the galaxy, telling him that he mattered. Lyra traced a finger over the holomap. Look at this system, she said. It is weak but strategically important. My people cannot hold it. Our fleets would fail against the enemy's tactics. Only a plan using subtlety, patience, and observation can save it. Jack leaned closer. The system was small, almost insignificant from a distance, yet its position made it valuable. He could imagine fleets moving, alliances forming and breaking, and the chaos the enemy could create. How do I help? He asked. By thinking like a human, Lyra said. Not like a warrior, not like a commander. Humans see what is ignored, notice what is assumed, and connect what seems unconnected. Your people survived when others failed because you do not rely only on strength. You rely on understanding. Jack nodded slowly. He remembered his own past. When fleets had clashed, he had noticed patterns that no one else did. He had been a small part of something huge, and yet he had made a difference. The idea of doing it again was terrifying, but there was a strange pull, a sense that he could not ignore. Show me, Lyra said, how humans think. Teach me patience, observation, and subtlety. The enemy cannot be defeated by force alone. They have no morality, no hesitation, no care for rules. Only understanding, unpredictability, and empathy can slow them down. Jack felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He had avoided recognition, attention, and involvement for years. Now he could not avoid it. The universe, in a way he could hardly imagine, had called him again. He began with small lessons. He showed Lyra how humans observe their surroundings, how tiny details could reveal much larger truths. A pattern of movement, a repeated habit, a small inconsistency. These things often indicated strategy or weakness. Lyra listened closely, absorbing every word. She asked questions, sometimes sharp, sometimes soft, revealing her curiosity about human thinking. Why do humans trust each other so quickly sometimes? She asked. Sometimes we don't, Jack said. Sometimes we fail. But humans often risk trust because it can save lives or prevent mistakes. We know danger comes whether we cooperate or not, so we sometimes take chances. It can work or it can fail, but it is part of our survival. Lyra nodded slowly. She understood strategy in battle, but she had never seen survival as a choice that depended on human emotion. She had trained for obedience, for efficiency, for strength. The idea that compassion and risk-taking could be survival skills fascinated her. Jack then explained improvisation. Humans cannot always predict everything. We adjust quickly when plans fail. We survive by thinking on our feet, by bending rules, and by learning fast. That is why humans last. Improvisation, Lyra repeated. That is something my people cannot do easily. We train to follow orders and execute perfectly. Deviation is considered weakness, yet it seems to be a strength. It is, Jack said simply. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is change your mind when circumstances demand it. The hours passed. Lyra watched Jack demonstrate scenarios using small models of planets and fleets. She learned to think like a human, to see the connections others ignored, to notice details that seemed insignificant but could change outcomes. Jack's instructions were slow and careful, yet she absorbed everything. She had fought thousands of battles, but this was different. This required patience, reflection, and imagination. Jack could see her struggle and adapt. She was no longer just a warrior. She was a student, eager to understand a human skill her people had long ignored. He felt a strange pride. He had never thought he would teach a warrior, let alone one admired across the galaxy. "What about emotions?" Lyra asked finally. "Humans make choices based on fear, anger, hope, often too many emotions. How can that be survival?" Jack smiled faintly. "Emotions are information. They tell us what matters. They alert us to danger. They guide our decisions when facts are not enough. Warriors like you fight with certainty. Humans fight with uncertainty, but we survive because we care. And caring can be stronger than certainty." Lyra paused. She had never fought with emotion in this way. Strength, precision, and skill had always been enough. Yet Jack's words made sense. She realized that her kind had underestimated humans, and that underestimation could cost lives. As the day turned to evening, the two of them sat in silence, studying the holomap together. Jack suggested small maneuvers, subtle distractions, and careful alliances. Lyra listened and adjusted her understanding. Slowly, she began to see the patterns the enemy would follow, the gaps that could be exploited, and the mistakes the strongest fleets could make. "Humans are unpredictable," she said softly. "Even the smallest actions can have massive consequences. I understand now. This is why you survived before. This is why you were chosen." Jack shook his head. "I didn't survive on purpose. I just paid attention." "Attention," Lyra repeated. "It is the human weapon. A weapon no army can match, no fleet can overpower, no empire can control." Outside, the sky darkened. Stars began to appear. Jack looked at the familiar constellations and felt a small calm. The universe was vast and dangerous, but in that moment he felt capable. "We will need to move soon," Lyra said. "The enemy will test us, fleets will be lost, worlds will fall if we are not ready." Jack nodded. Fear mingled with determination. He had been a quiet observer all his life. Now he was the observer on whom many lives would depend. Lyra reached out, a hand resting briefly on his shoulder. It was not a warrior's grip, but a gesture of trust. "You will guide us," she said. "You will show the way, and maybe you will surprise even yourself." Jack inhaled deeply. The weight of responsibility pressed down, but he also felt a strange energy. He had avoided danger for years. He had avoided recognition. Now he was in the center of something far larger than himself, but he was ready to try. The night settled over the city. The quiet house that had been Jack's world for so long now held a presence that changed everything. A human mind and a warrior's strength together could face threats no one else could. And for the first time, Jack realized that humans, small and underestimated, could stand in the middle of a galaxy full of powerful beings and not just survive, but influence the course of everything. The universe was dangerous, yes. Unpredictable, yes. But Jack knew something he had long forgotten. Sometimes, the smallest minds, when careful and wise, could change the fate of millions. Lyra looked at him, her eyes glowing softly in the dim light. Jack smiled faintly, a mixture of fear, hope, and resolve. They would face what came next together, using human ingenuity, patience, and understanding. And that was the beginning of something neither of them could fully predict, but both were ready to face. The galaxy was watching. Even if it did not yet know it, Jack spent the next days teaching Lyra and preparing for what was coming. He never left his small house, but the room was filled with activity. Tiny holomaps, Old books and models of planets covered every surface. Lyra studied every lesson, her sharp mind absorbing things faster than Jack could imagine. The quiet human skills he had once taken for granted were now becoming weapons in a galaxy that had only ever known brute strength. "This is confusing," Lyra admitted one afternoon. She leaned over a small holographic model of a fleet, her glowing eyes scanning every movement. "The enemy does not act like others. They are unpredictable and careless with their own losses. Strength does not matter here." "Exactly," Jack said. "That's why humans survive. We do not rely only on strength. We think, we observe, we adapt. The enemy cannot predict us because we do not act like a normal force." Lyra nodded slowly. She had fought thousands of battles, but she had never faced an enemy like this. She had always relied on tactics, training, and courage. Now she realized that those things would not be enough. Only understanding, patience, and subtlety could protect lives. "What about fleets?" she asked. "We cannot fight them all at once." Jack thought carefully. "We don't need to. We need to slow them down, mislead them, confuse them. Make them believe humans are weak, then strike where they are unprepared." Lyra studied him closely. "You are suggesting we fight without fighting?" "Yes," Jack said. "We protect the people without destroying everything. We win by being careful and clever, not by being stronger." They spent hours running through scenarios. Jack showed her small strategies: fake retreats, hidden routes, messages meant to confuse, and alliances that could trick the enemy into wasting resources. Lyra adapted quickly, thinking like a human, not like a warrior. She started to understand that planning with logic and empathy could be more powerful than any weapon. One evening, Lyra looked up from the holomap. "Humans, you are strange," she said. "You fight, you survive, you win not because you are the strongest, but because you are unpredictable and patient. I admire this method." Jack smiled faintly. "It is not perfect. Humans fail a lot. We make mistakes, but we keep going. We survive. Sometimes that is stronger than winning every fight." Outside, the night was quiet. Distant stars twinkled. Jack could feel the weight of the universe pressing on his shoulders, but he also felt a strange sense of control. They were preparing, planning, and understanding. The enemy might be coming, but they would not be ready for what Jack and Lyra could do together. "We should prepare communication," Jack said. "We need humans and aliens who will follow this plan quietly. If fleets act too quickly, it will fail. We need coordination." Lyra nodded. "I will send messages to trusted commanders. They will obey you because you understand strategy they cannot see. I will explain nothing beyond what you teach. Secrecy is important." Jack spent the next day drafting instructions. He did not write commands, he wrote guidance. Suggestions, questions, small decisions that could help leaders think differently. Lyra studied them carefully, making sure every message would be understood but not altered. "Humans are strange," she said again. "Your decisions rely on observation, patience, and emotion. That is why you survive. That is why you were chosen." Jack did not answer. He only worked. He could feel tension growing in the galaxy. Reports of enemy movements reached them through Lyra's holomap. Systems disappeared from communication. Entire fleets were delayed, defeated without explanation. The enemy was careful and fast, but Jack's planning could be faster and smarter. "They are testing us," Lyra said quietly one night. "They know we exist." "They are probing for weaknesses," Jack nodded. "They will not find any, not if we stay clever. Humans are small, quiet, and underestimated. That is our advantage. We use what others ignore." They moved into more advanced lessons. Jack showed Lyra how humans spread information in ways that seemed meaningless but could influence outcomes. Small rumors, misleading actions, minor distractions. These could prevent fleets from making the right choices. Lyra's warrior mind resisted at first, but slowly she understood. "This is not fighting," she said. "This is survival." "Exactly," Jack said. "Sometimes survival is stronger than fighting. Sometimes winning means losing a battle so you can save millions. Lyra nodded slowly. Then humans are not weak, she said. They are clever. We are, Jack said softly. Sometimes, not always. Days passed. Jack continued teaching. Lyra continued learning. Outside the city, reports of enemy movements became more urgent. The enemy fleet moved toward populated systems. Starships vanished. Alarms rang across sectors. Panic was growing among leaders who relied on force alone. We need to act, Lyra said. The time for planning is short. We must implement your methods. Jack studied the maps. He suggested starting with the smallest system, where the enemy would expect the least resistance. He explained how to move fleets in patterns that seemed chaotic but were carefully planned, how to give the enemy false confidence, and how to protect civilians without sending soldiers into pointless battles. Humans fight without weapons sometimes, Jack said. Our actions, our decisions, our timing, they are stronger than metal or fire. Lyra was amazed. She had fought thousands of battles and never realized that thinking could be more powerful than fighting. She realized now that the quiet human before her, once unnoticed, could save more lives than entire fleets. They prepared a message for Allied commanders. It was simple but powerful. Move slowly, observe carefully, follow instructions without deviation, and protect civilians first. Every step had a reason, every choice mattered. Lyra double-checked everything. She understood now that Jack's planning would succeed where traditional fleets would fail. This is different, Lyra said, watching the first fleet follow the instructions. This is not war, this is guidance. Humans do not fight to destroy, they fight to save. Jack smiled faintly. That is what my people do, quietly, carefully, without glory. It works because no one expects it to. Outside, stars twinkled faintly. The first signs of the enemy fleet appeared in the distance. They were large, imposing, moving like a force no one could stop. But Jack's plans were ready. The fleets followed subtle maneuvers, feints, and controlled retreats. The enemy, confident in their strength, stumbled at every turn. Systems that would have fallen were protected. Civilians remained safe. Lyra watched in silence. She had never seen warriors act without attacking, yet succeed. She realized that humans were not weak, soft, or small. They were unpredictable, clever, and patient. They survived because they used minds instead of weapons. This is incredible, she whispered. Your people, your kind, you have survived this long because no one expects this. Humans are not weak, they are necessary. Jack looked at her. He felt tired, but a strange pride grew inside him. The quiet, unnoticed human who had avoided danger for so long was now guiding fleets, protecting millions, and changing the course of the galaxy. We are just getting started, he said quietly. The enemy will continue to test us. But if we stay careful, if we think, if we observe, we can survive. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. We will survive, together. Your methods, your mind, it is the key. Not strength, not weapons, but intelligence, patience, and understanding. Jack nodded. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and unpredictable. Yet, he had found a way to make a difference. He had found a way to show that humans, small and underestimated, could survive and protect countless lives without fighting the way warriors always fought. And for the first time, he realized that sometimes the quietest, smallest, and simplest people could change the universe. They worked together late into the night. Every detail was planned, every movement calculated, every choice considered. The enemy moved, but Jack's guidance stayed one step ahead. He was no longer a man avoiding the universe. He was its quiet guardian, its observer, its unexpected weapon. And Lyra, the most feared and respected warrior in the galaxy, followed his lead, not because she had to, but because she saw the truth. Humans could survive where empires failed, think where fleets stumbled, and win without striking a single blow. The night passed. The quiet human house at the edge of the city became the center of a plan that would save countless lives. The galaxy did not yet know it, but the most powerful minds were not the ones in fleets or palaces. They were in a small home in a man who once avoided recognition and a warrior who had come to learn the human way. Jack looked out the window. The stars were silent, watching, waiting. And for the first time, he felt that quiet humans could stand at the center of the universe, not to conquer, not to destroy, but to protect, survive, and guide. And that was the power he now understood. The power of thought, patience, and humanity. Jack sat at his small table, staring at the holomap that showed the enemy fleet scattered across several systems. The plan they had made with Lyra was working. Fleets that would have been destroyed were safe, supply lines that could have been cut remained intact, and civilians continued their lives without panic. Jack could hardly believe it. All of this had been done without a single large battle. Humans and aliens were surviving because of observation, clever choices, and timing. Lyra stood nearby, her glowing eyes scanning the movements. She had changed. She was no longer just the warrior who had entered Jack's house weeks ago. She had learned to think like a human, to value patience, subtlety, and emotion as tools. She now trusted his decisions, not because he had weapons, but because he had understanding. "The enemy will realize something soon," she said. "They will try to strike where we least expect. They are not weak, Jack. We must remain careful." Jack nodded. "I know, but they will not find us. Not yet. Humans survive by noticing what others ignore. They will fail because they cannot predict our choices." As the hours passed, reports came in. Entire enemy fleets had moved into traps without realizing it. Civilians were evacuated quietly, supplies reached safe zones, and false communications led the enemy to waste fuel and energy in the wrong areas. What could have been a war of destruction became a war of delay, observation, and careful maneuvering. "Humans are strange," Lyra said quietly, almost to herself. "Your species survives by thinking, by caring, by noticing. It is beautiful." Jack smiled faintly. He had never thought of humans this way before. He had lived quietly, unnoticed, believing that his life was small and unimportant. Now he understood. Human survival was quiet, clever, and patient. It was strength without force, wisdom without command, and courage without weapons. "We cannot stop them forever," Lyra said. "They will try again, stronger, faster. But for now, millions are safe." Jack nodded. He could feel the exhaustion settling into his bones, but also the strange pride of knowing that his small decisions, made quietly in his living room, were protecting countless lives. He had avoided recognition for so long, yet here he was, the center of a plan that no warrior or fleet could have achieved alone. "Why did you come to me?" he asked her. "Why not someone else?" Lyra looked at him, her eyes soft but firm. "Because you see what others cannot. Your people survive because of observation, care, and unpredictability. My people have strength, skill, and courage, but we forget these things. I needed someone human to remind us. I came for you because you can teach me and through me protect millions." Jack shook his head. He had never imagined such responsibility. He had lived quietly, thinking his life was small. Now, the most powerful warrior in the universe was saying that he could make a difference. "I did not want this," he said. "I just wanted peace." "Sometimes peace requires courage," Lyra said. "Sometimes the quietest person must stand at the center of everything." The next day, the enemy attempted a sudden strike on a critical supply route. Fleets were ready, but instead of engaging directly, Jack's plan diverted them with fake signals, misdirected messages, and small tactical maneuvers. The enemy fell into confusion, attacked empty sectors, and wasted resources. Civilians and fleets were unharmed. The enemy realized too late that humans and their allies had outsmarted them. Lyra watched silently, her expression unreadable. She had led warriors in thousands of battles, but she had never seen a fight won without blood, without destruction, without a single strike. She finally understood the human way. Strength was not always physical. Survival was more than force. Intelligence, care, and observation could save more lives than an entire army. Jack's plan continued to work. Small victories added up. Systems that would have fallen remained under control. Enemy fleets grew frustrated and slow. Civilians never knew the danger they were in. The universe shifted, not with explosions, but with choices, timing, and quiet action. After days of preparation and careful observation, the last major threat appeared in orbit around a small human colony. The enemy expected fleets, weapons, and soldiers. Jack and Lyra had prepared differently. Humans and their allies had used subtle diversions, minor alliances, and careful communication. The enemy was lured into empty sectors, while the colony remained safe. For the first time, the enemy realized that humans could not be predicted, could not be destroyed with force alone, and that their own confidence was their weakness. "We did it," Lyra said quietly. "Millions are safe because of you, because of humans." Jack shook his head. "We didn't do it alone. We planned, we waited, we observed. Humans survive because we notice, but we succeed when others join us." Lyra looked at him. "I came to learn from you, to trust you, to see the human way, and now I see it clearly. Humans are not weak. They are necessary for the universe." Jack smiled faintly. It was strange to hear such words from the most feared warrior in existence. He had spent his life avoiding recognition, avoiding responsibility, and hiding from the larger universe. Yet here he was, quietly protecting millions and teaching a warrior how to see the strength of humans. "What happens now?" he asked. "The universe will remember," Lyra said. "Not because humans fight the strongest, but because they survive when no one expects it. Humans adapt, care, and think, and through you millions live." Jack nodded. He realized that his quiet life, the small house, and his careful choices had mattered more than he had ever imagined. The enemy was gone for now. Fleets had returned to safe sectors. Civilians continued their lives, yet Jack knew the universe would always have threats. But for the first time, he believed that humans, small and underestimated, could face them. Lyra stepped closer. "Jack, you must understand something. I did not only come for strategy. I came because humans are rare in their strength of mind and heart. You have reminded me that the strongest warrior is not always the one with weapons. Sometimes, the mind, patience, and care are stronger than any army." Jack looked at her, amazed. The most attractive and feared warrior in the galaxy, telling him that humans and even he himself mattered. It was overwhelming yet humbling. "So you came to my house for me?" he asked quietly. "Yes," Lyra said. "For you, and through you, for your people. You are a bridge between worlds, a human who can guide others, protect lives, and show that thinking, caring, and patience are stronger than destruction." Jack felt a strange warmth inside. He had avoided the galaxy for so long, hiding in quiet and small actions. Now he realized that quiet humans, unnoticed by most, could change the fate of the universe. He had survived, observed, and learned. He had taught the most feared warrior to see a human way, and through him, millions had survived. I don't know what to say," he admitted. "I never asked for this." "You don't need to say anything," Lyra said. "The universe has already said it for you. You survived, you observed, you guided. That is enough. Your small choices, made carefully, have saved millions, and that is what humans do best." Jack looked out at the stars. The night was calm, quiet, and filled with possibilities. The universe was dangerous, unpredictable, and vast. Yet he had found a way to make a difference, quietly, patiently, without glory and without force. Humans could stand at the center of events and survive, not by fighting, but by thinking, observing, and caring. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. "Thank you," she said simply. "You have reminded me that the strongest warriors are not always those with weapons. Sometimes they are quiet, unnoticed humans who survive and guide others." Jack nodded slowly. He felt the weight of his actions. the importance of his choices, and the quiet power of his people. The galaxy had changed, and he had been part of it not as a soldier or hero but as a human. "So we rest now?" he asked. "For a while," Lyra said, "but the universe will always need minds like yours. Humans survive because they think, care, and endure. Never forget that." Jack smiled faintly. For the first time in years, he felt at peace. He had avoided the galaxy, avoided attention, and avoided responsibility. Now he understood that the quiet, unnoticed human could be the center of survival for countless lives. And that was why the most attractive alien warrior in the universe had come to his small house. Not for battle, not for fame, not for glory, but to remind him, and the galaxy, that the mind, care, and courage of humans could change everything. Jack looked out at the stars once more. Millions were safe. The enemy had been stopped. And the quiet human who once avoided the universe had finally realized that sometimes the smallest, quietest people could stand at the center of everything. And in that quiet moment, Jack knew the universe had chosen correctly. Humans, small and underestimated, had survived and saved the galaxy. The stars were silent witnesses to the quiet strength of one human and the warrior who had come to learn from him. The universe would never forget that survival was more than force. It was patience, care, and the quiet courage to act wisely. Jack exhaled slowly. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and unpredictable. Yet for now, it was safe, because of a quiet man who had once avoided attention and the warrior who had come for an unbelievable reason. And that was the end of one story, and the beginning of a legacy humans would carry for generations.